Record the pledge of. Should I start over?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, we're going ahead and call this meeting to order. It's 4 o'clock. We'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Shall we begin? Thank you. Item B is approval of a flexible agenda. Okay. Okay, a motion was made by trustee Kangas and it was seconded by trustee Engelkirk. Is there any public comment on this? Seeing none, we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a consent items. Did anyone want anything pulled off of the consent?
No, I just want to direct that there is a new personnel report in the red folder to make sure that you're aware of that. And the accurate one is back here on the table for public.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Lewis. Okay, since no one wants anything pulled, do we go ahead and make a motion? Okay, motion was made by trustee Chichester. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made or second by trustee Jackson. Is there any public comment on this? Seeing none, we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Okay. Not sure where Keith's going. Who's next? Oh, left. My other left. Thank you. All right. Hey, Rick. All right. Item number 3 is introduction and special recognition. Superintendent Lewis.
Tonight.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Item 4 is Nevada Association of School Boards. Heather is the representative. Do you have anything to report, Heather?
I do. Okay, first of all, there's a training in September in Las Vegas. And so if you're interested in going to that, you need to let Karen know so she can get you signed up. And then there's also November 11th and 12th in Tahoe is when they do the awards and the banquet dinner and stuff. And so that's also on the calendar. We did get a new executive director. He was just, we just had a meeting last night. His name is Rick Harris. He has been he's worked at 7 different schools, been a principal at 7 different schools, and then I think been a teacher and other resource at several other schools, most of them in Washoe County. And we got to meet him and I think he's going to be able to really help us out and do some great things for NASB. And he has a lot of connections and is well aware of the issues of especially the funding and the different things that we are working on as a state. And so we're excited to have him be brought on. For the board members, the NASB award nominations are due by August 13th. So I think you all got the email that has the list of different awards that are possible. So if there's people within our district that you would like to nominate, to get that to Karen. And then I also have a report on the Commission on School Funding. It met on June 24th. And so that's where they're kind of trying to figure out funding for the state of Nevada for education. And they have a whole committee that's working on that meets monthly. So they met and there's a few things I just want to share with you. They talked about the education, the state is going to get funding for education from the revenue from the gold and silver tax from AB 495. That'll be in 2023. It's estimated we'll get about $81 million each year. And then also from the net proceeds of the minerals will be deposited in the state education fund, and that'll be around 71 million each year. starting in 2025. So that sounded wonderful to me until I realized that we're about 1 to 2%. And so the amount of funding that Douglas is going to get from that is not, when you look at our budget being around 58 million, that's not going to help us a lot. But that is money that's going into education. So then they had a discussion on different sales tax scenarios. And so I'd like to share these so you're aware of what they're thinking and you can let your representatives know how you feel about this and what we should do. The first pathway is to eliminate exemptions. And so this would remove all or selected explicit exemptions. So for example, when we food for human consumption is not taxed in the state of Nevada, they could remove that exemption. We would now be taxed for that food for consumption, and some of that money could be used for education. I'm sure they would put some of it other places too. But that's one option. The second pathway is to apply the current sales tax rate to a broader base of selected services. And so there's a lot of things that are not taxed, a lot of people that are not taxed because of different things. And so they would broaden that. So that's also an option. The third pathway is to apply a new dedicated education tax to selected services. From what I heard, it sounded like they weren't too excited about that one because nobody wants new taxes. But I'm just letting you know that's what the state is talking about and looking at. And so we need to have a voice in that. And we definitely need more funding for education, but we also maybe can help figure out where that funding should come from, or be careful, or they may decide for us. So just wanted to let you guys know those are the things that they're doing. They did talk about how this might be a time to modernize and improve our tax policy in the state of Nevada, that we're kind of behind the times in that. So just letting you know that was the discussion. And then the superintendent's NASS, he spoke, Nevada Association of Superintendents, and just talked about how superintendents are working hard. They need more funding, they need more money so that they can get good teachers and keep those good teachers. And we need to be able to increase the salary of our teachers and staff. And so talking about how that's one of the reasons we need to be finding these funding options so that we can pay for the teachers. And so I just wanted to kind of share that some of the stuff that they've been talking about, and I'll try and give reports as we have those, and Keith might have more on those when he talks.
Yeah, no, I just, Karen forwarded you an email this morning. So it's pretty much a summary of what Karen or Heather said. I'd really encourage you to read it just to get an understanding. The other thing they're looking at is the Nevada Cost of Education Index. That's been one of the key parts of the pupil-centered funding that has been detrimental to Douglas County. And they're talking about removing even the floor of 1. They loop Douglas County in with Carson, Lyon, and Story County as equivalent cost of living. We all know that Douglas County is much higher, and we're not getting any kind of funding allowances within that plan for our location. And by removing the floor of 1, that would take us down even more potentially. And so, as Heather said, this commission, all of this would have to be legislative action. The commission would just make recommendations to the legislature in 2023 moving forward. So
Keith, can you explain that a little more? Because so if they remove the floor of 1, then we don't get, well,
we would actually get less. So what they did is in the cost of education index, Douglas County came in at like 0.9865 or something. So slightly less than 1. So in that sense, we got stopped at 1, which meant we got nothing additional. Other districts got 1.2 or 1.3. And so they got additional funding within the plan. And so if by removing that index, we would go down slightly. It's not going to be major, but it's another damaging funding for Douglas County.
Okay, thank you.
So.
I'm sorry, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have questions for Heather?
Yeah.
Okay.
So on this gold and silver tax, saying that's been enacted.
Yeah, it's part of AB 495. And so it says that, let's see. Yeah, it's just revenue that'll come from the gold and silver tax that was provided from AB 495. So that's already been put into place. Well, it's.
And that's in 2023. I think that is set to go in effect in
Yes,
23.
beginning 2023.
Well, by my math, that's like 1.5 million to 3 million. So it's not something to shake a stick at, but.
No, it's still, I mean,
okay.
it's a positive.
Still
Yeah.
good, just not, when you're talking 58 million, 1 more million, when you look at the whole scope of it. But yes, like, we're happy for any improvement, right?
Better than losing it.
There you go.
Ross?
I just have a question. Is there anything in the new law that the provision that if we get the other million, that they're going to decrease our DSA because like they did with the marijuana tax,
Right,
I mean,
that's probably,
It's certainly possible, Ross.
You know, I
It's a
mean-
shell game. We never know.
right.
We never know. I mean, they're not lying when they say it went to
Well,
education, but it
yeah.
came out the bottom end is the equal amount came out the bottom end.
right.
So.
That's,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Heather, for your report. Yeah. All right, we'll move on to item number 5, board reports. Does anyone on the board have anything to report on what they've done since the last meeting? Hey, that's
The only thing this month was going to the George Whittel High School graduation, which was nice.
anybody else? Carrie?
Hello. Okay, I wasn't here for the last board meeting. I apologize for that. I was in a location that supposedly had Wi-Fi, but it didn't work out. So that being said, I would like to go digress to before that meeting. Yes. So I went to the DHS Awards night, which is old news, but it was a lot of money, and the kids that achieved those goals were very excited, and I believe it was over $200,000 worth of awards. Yes. DHS Art Show. Very impressed by the abilities that kids that age have that I've never acquired in my entire lifetime. District Development Committee, we worked on the emergency operation plan. Jacks Valley kindergarten graduation, which I had a granddaughter that graduated, so that was very nice. DHS graduation and the DNO, Aspire, and Adult Ed high school equivalency. Is that what? Yeah. So all those presentations were done very well, and it was a very exciting time for me. That's it.
Heather?
I'll just mention, same thing, I wasn't here last month, so I was able to go to the high school graduation, Douglas High and Powaloo and CVMS. And next year, I'm hoping to stay in town a little longer after graduation so I can get to some of those others, the George Whittel and some of those others. So I was sad to miss those, but I was out of town for them. But exciting to see so many of our students do so
Good.
well. So.
Trustee Magnata, do you have anything? No? And no? Okay. And
Heather,
myself
next
either.
year, Whittel will be around the same time.
That's true,
That's
with the
true.
changing
Everybody
calendar.
starts the
I will
calendar
be here.
changes, yeah.
Okay, even better.
All right, we'll move on to item number 6, correspondence. Does anyone have anything to report regarding any correspondence that they received? No? Okay, we'll move on to number 7, good news. With school being out, there's not a whole lot going on, but I will tell you that this morning I went over to Lampe and was playing pickleball, and the high school, the girls and the boys high school team was out there practicing. And there's some really young looking kids. Wow. And it was really exciting to watch them. The girls practiced first and then the boys came after. And I'll tell you, the girls, there was a slew of them out there. And it was fun to watch the kids play. And then the boys came and there was quite a few of those. So hopeful for our tennis team. That's all the good news I have. Does anyone else have anything to share?
I'll just share, I know that the band had their band camp, was it this past week? So they've been working, and then I was telling Tony that the varsity and JV football went up to Damani and they did 7-on-7. And they had, I think, six teams there, and they all played little 20-minute games against the other teams. And it was really fun without all the pads, and just out there playing. Like, they just had a great time, and it was fun. It was fun to see that and to just have those interactions. They have another one this Thursday night up at Damani again, and then There's another one in a couple weeks that they're doing, but yeah, it's kind of fun.
Thank you, Heather. That it? All right. We'll move on to item number 8, maintenance and project report. We have Mr. Phil Demas that's going to provide us an update. Thank you, Phil, for being here.
So all of our summer projects are completed. We're on schedule. With the exception of Douglas High School, the parking lot, as anybody who's driven by has probably noticed. West Coast Paving had a couple big pieces of equipment go down and they couldn't find anything. So it's over a month behind schedule, but they're working again and it'll be done by the end of July. So with the extension of the school year at the end of this year, and what happened is because that money comes out of the 88 funds, we kind of lost that particular funding. So next year, we're going to start all our projects on July 1st, the beginning of the fiscal year, because we've been doing them all at the end of the fiscal year. So if you don't finish your project by June 30th, you know, typically you could lose your money. So with this one going over by so much, but you know, we're fine with it. But so for next year, everything's going to start July 1st. And it'll be a lot better, I think, for never losing any funding. You
Okay.
confused?
What? I know, I have this confused. I know, I'm, when you say we lose money, that always, you're kind of go, what do you mean we
I
lost?
didn't lose it.
Okay,
It's still, we did some carpet work last year that took up some of that funding
okay.
and it was almost a wash by not getting that done, but
Okay, so we use the
What-
money for something else than to pay another
Yes.
project. Okay, and where will the money come then for this project that moved out?
this next fiscal year.
The next fiscal year? Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay,
So
all right,
that's this one
Mhm.
going forward. So now paving, painting, roofing and carpet projects. It's just those projects, not capital projects.
okay.
So it's those $400,000 projects that we do every year. So now with the school year going later, we can't do anything at the end of a fiscal year.
That makes sense, okay.
Oh,
Sure.
To get all of our work done. So
All right,
this will
we
be
have to
good. It'll
done
make
by
a
the
lot more
30th
sense
and
to
then-
start July 1st.
Yes.
Gives you wiggle room for any unexpected
You get a whole
things
nother-
that come. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't get some carpet done, you could do it on a break.
Sure.
You have a whole year
Mhm.
to get it done. So no bad news there. I was just trying to explain it.
Okay. I'm like, what do you mean you lost it?
So we went over capital projects for our 5-year plan last week with Sue and Scott and I and Bill, and we feel good about the projects we have, make sure we had adequate funding for them. And I didn't bring the list in today, but I think we went over them last time I was here. So that's really all I have. We're looking, I do have. I thought I printed big enough. So we don't have enough funding for the HVAC, that 10-year plan I had, $20 million. I mean, we just don't have that money. So I'm looking at other ways to value engineer or come up with different designs for like Carson Valley Middle School. I wanted to do a chiller system there, but it's going to be over $4 million. So if I don't get ESSER money or other grant money that I've applied for, then we're going to have to go other routes. But I got some engineers working on that plan as well, so. Like everybody says there isn't enough money coming into our school district to do everything I want to do, everything I think we need to do. But we're gonna make it as good as we can to keep everybody cool and hot, comfortable. So
There you go.
that's about all I have. Gonna start a 10-year plan for all schools, for all aspects of not just HVAC or roofing. Gonna go down the list for everything. And we'll really be looking for money, but
Okay.
it's gonna be the truth of the matter.
Sure.
So that's all I
right.
got.
Thank you.
Okay.
Does the board have any questions for Phil? No, thanks, Phil.
So I just want to add, Heather referred to the presentation to the funding committee from the Nevada superintendents. And infrastructure is one of our top 4 priorities as well. It's not something that Douglas County faces alone. A lot of our school districts have buildings that are aging and limited capital money coming in on an annual basis. And so that's another area where we think the state's going to really have to look long-term at all districts in terms of providing additional capital money. Here in Douglas County, we're 7 years away from being able to even float a bond for capital improvement. And, we know the likelihood of that passing is probably not great, even if we were. And so those are things that Phil's going to be tasked with. And we're going to have to, really look at it long-term and really manage our money well to pick off projects and do a little as much as we can with the money that we have at the time. So, but I do appreciate we're really trying to look a lot more, way beyond 5 years and really be able to identify our projects and prioritize looking forward. So.
Oh, okay. Doug, go ahead.
What is the life expectancy of the current CVA, EMAP, Carson Valley Middle School HVAC system?
If I don't do anything,
Yeah,
within the next 3 to 5 years, have a lot of massive failure. There's a lot of that equipment's, original. So one of my plans is, right now they have like condensing units on the roof packages, and they're for every room, it has a condensing unit. It's very inefficient, but if I don't have enough money, I'll just upgrade those condensing units and they're good for 20 more years. And then, we just aren't improving, as far as energy efficiency and like chiller systems. They're very good for the environment and energy efficient. But if we don't have the money for that, then we just go with the old school stuff and keep things rolling for another 15, 20 years. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Phil. All right. Item 9 on our agenda is the superintendent's report. Superintendent Lewis.
Lucky for all of you, this is relatively short too. We do have 3 donations. Douglas High School received a donation from Roger and Leo Sabalas of Sabalas Enterprises, donating landscaping rock, including labor and delivery, which was valued around $1,500. The Carson Valley Medical Center donated $8,195 to the boys and girls basketball program to use towards the purchase of a shooting machine. And Rice Hydro Incorporated donated $500 to the boys soccer program as well. As was mentioned by Doug, on June 18th, I attended the George Whittle High School graduation as well. It was a great celebration of 17 graduates at Douglas or at Whittle, and I'd like to commend our Lake School administrators and the staff for their work in organizing that special occasion. So they hold it down on the field. It's a great backdrop to hold a graduation. On June 20th and 21st, my cabinet and I met for our annual retreat here at the luxurious Airport Training Center. We spent the days reviewing our work during the 2021-22 school year and planning for the upcoming 22-23 school year, which includes a lot of work around our annual leadership forum that kicks off our year, August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd with our site administrators. As you know, we've had several hires, so we will be bringing a lot of new faces on board. And so the learning forum will be that much, even that much more important. So tonight in your consent agenda, you approve the hiring of Cheryl Mayfield as the new Assistant Director of Inclusive Education. Ms. Mayfield comes to DCSD from Clark County, where she has served as a special education instructional coordinator and teacher for the past 25 years. She also serves as an adjunct instructor at University of Nevada, Las Vegas and Grand Canyon University. Tonight, you also approve the hiring of Douglas High School math teacher Joe Andrews as the new dean at Douglas High School. He will be a teacher on special assignment for 1 year. And DCSD bus driver trainer Blair Hines has been hired as the new transportation coordinator to fill Mark Rhodes' position since he moved to director. Also, Douglas High School Assistant Principal Greg Thetford submitted his resignation in June to accept a assistant principal position at Eagle Valley Middle School in Carson City. And so we have interviews scheduled this Friday for both the Douglas High School AP and the Lake Schools assistant principal positions as well. So hopefully we've got qualified candidates. So hopefully we'll have 2 new hires at the end of the week, and that will hopefully fill out our administrative team for the year. So any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Where did the landscaping rock go to?
You know, it's a good question. I could not get a hold of Mr. Rex to find out where that did go. So I will get that back.
I was
to you.
just curious. That's not-
As I typed that up last night, I wondered the same.
I was just
so.
curious. Anybody else have any other questions on the board for?
Why is Mr. Andrews a teacher on special assignment? Can you explain that?
Turn on your mic, please.
Could you explain why Joe Andrews is a teacher on special assignment?
Yes, so we had worked with the union to create a TOSA position that would provide a leadership opportunity for aspiring administrators. And so we decided to go that route for the second dean for this first year. It's a second dean, so it's not replacing John. It's a second dean to provide additional support. And so we went that route. Yeah. And Joe is currently in his admin program and will finish in 2023. So. Okay.
Can I just ask
Yep.
overall how the hiring is going? Do we still have a lot of positions open? Where are we at?
We're picking away at it. So as you saw tonight, we still are still getting some resignations, some retirement.
Right.
We've had, I think, 4 retirements since school ended. And so we're hired out elementary wise. We're very good there. We're struggling to find a reading specialist at the elementary. That's been one of our struggles, but I know Shannon's been working with the department to really clarify exactly, can we take a classroom teacher that doesn't currently have their reading endorsement, but is working towards it. So we're working on that with the Department of Ed. And then we're still struggling at the secondary with math. We've got 2 math openings at Douglas High School. And so we will take that into consideration too with Mr. Andrews. If we don't have an adequate replacement, he may need to teach some classes and serve in both roles to move forward. So we're making progress, but this is the really tough time. And we've said that within the normal, we're getting outside that normal hiring period.
Right.
And so the pool special ed is going to be very problematic for us. And I know Jeannie's got a meeting with the director in Carson City, and how could we look at, are there some services that we can work together as neighboring districts to provide? And we're just going to have to really look at how we offer special ed services, because not only do we have a teacher shortage, we really have a teacher shortage in special ed.
Right.
And so again, your approval of critical shortage hopefully will help fill in some of these holes as well, that we can go out and hire retirees that might be interested in coming back to teach. So.
Rob?
That last you just touched on was my other question. How does that process work? Has it been approved by the state now?
We're waiting for PERS approval. So they got submitted. And so then PERS is the one who actually approves those. And so once that gets approved, we went ahead and put them up there with the anticipation. We obviously wouldn't hire them until they're approved,
Okay.
but so that we can start collecting applications.
And have you seen applications?
I have not yet. So
None?
I just got back to the office, so I haven't had a chance to look, to be
I
honest.
see. Thank
Yeah.
you.
One more question on
Okay.
that then, because I know it was something they have to be retired for so many.
For 90
months.
days.
Is that what you're talking about? That they might
Yes.
take that away?
We can write a letter, though, to get that reduced to 30. So if we find a candidate,
Okay.
we can write a letter to PERS and get that reduced by 60.
Okay.
Yep. But typically, outside of, let's say they weren't coming back as a critical shortage, if a teacher retired and then they want a sub, they have to wait 90 days before they can come back. So.
Will that change with the subbing as well? I mean, could you write a letter so that they could sub? after 30
We
days
can,
or
but
no?
we can also hire emergency subs too.
Okay.
And so we submitted a letter to the state that requests the permission to hire emergency sub, which
Okay.
isn't the most desirable. You know, it doesn't have the same requirements.
Okay.
You have to have a high school diploma. And we can get them approved on a 1 year, year by year basis. So.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? If not, we'll move forward. Let's see, we're on item number 10. And this is the Family Life Sex Education AIDS Advisory Committee update of the instructional materials. And Executive Director of Educational Service, Mr. Shannon Brown, is going to walk us through this today. Thank you, Shannon.
All right. It's close enough. I think I have the next three items.
You do.
I think so. So,
Get comfortable.
um, all right, first of all, I would like to acknowledge all the work that the previous executive director, Melissa Rains, started this project back in 2020 after the new health standards were adopted. Working with them I started attending the meetings this past school year. And also I'd like board president for the meetings. Engelkirk attended. Attached to this back just because we'd be here all night, and we went in the April meeting, we went through in detail, and we had several members of the public join that meeting. And we were able to answer questions and clarify any questions they had. So I'll kind of run through an overview and highlight the changes and updates. And so first of all, the work this committee did is for this past school year, just 21-22, the committee had 5 scheduled meetings throughout the year. 2 of those meetings we had to cancel because we did not have a quorum of the membership. The committee was charged with reviewing and recommending new instructional materials for grades 3 through 5 based on the new health standards. And at this time, they're recommending approval of the new materials. And they're also recommending our next item on the agenda, which was making just a change to the board policy because they felt like with the new health standards, calling it the Human Growth and Development Advisory Committee would be more appropriate. So we'll have that as the next item. The new health standards. So in 2020, the Nevada Department of Education adopted new content standards in the area of health, which covers a lot of different areas. The strand around family life, sex education, and AIDS is where some updates were. And so it includes related communicable diseases, and sexual responsibility is under that strand. One major change within the strands is that there are no longer 4 distinct grade bands where it had like, it's broken up into its 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And then it's a middle school band and a high school band of standards. So those are the bigger changes in it. So I was going to kind of run through the new standard is there's only one standard that was brought down to 3rd grade, and that was identifying the functions of the major body parts using correct anatomical terms. The 4th grade standard, just for clarity, it's all these started in 5th grade prior to these being adopted. So I don't know if I was clear about that. The 2 standards in 4th grade are explain that all living things reproduce and identifying the body parts of the human reproductive systems using correct anatomical terms. And then for 5th grade, many of these are the same as what the content we were covering prior, including this school year, describing the process of human reproduction, identifying structures and functions of the human reproductive system using correct terms, explaining the physical, social, and emotional changes that occur during puberty and adolescence, explain how the timing of puberty and adolescence development varies considerably but can still be healthy and is still healthy, describing how puberty prepares the human bodies for the potential to reproduce. And then these next three standards were the ones, or two of the next two were not really covered in the previous curriculum. Is identifying how HIV and AIDS and related communicable diseases, STDs, are and are not transmitted, and then identifying current preventative approaches, including but not limited to the HPV vaccinations to combat communicable diseases, and then describing characteristics of healthy relationships. So our goal for health education in Douglas County is to provide curriculum that aligns with the new health standards and help students make responsible decisions. Oh, I didn't know these were bulleted. Apologize for that. Help students make responsible decisions, maintain respect for self and others, promote a positive self-concept, and then develop accurate knowledge of human anatomy and reproductive systems. The program has an emphasis on abstinence and refusal skills and goal setting and personal decision-making. So how is it taught? Boys and girls are separated from instruction at all times. 2 adults have been trained or in the classroom. Students' questions are anonymous and will be answered in a group setting. Inappropriate questions will not be answered. And teachers may say that is a question. If it's not in the scope and sequence of the standards in the curriculum, teachers don't address it. They refer them back to their parents. And that all terminology will be discussed using strict physiological and anatomical definitions and examples, and slang will not be used for instruction. And finally, curriculum and materials. All the curriculum and materials are reviewed by the Family Life and Sex Education Committee. They are by NRS. Sorry about the bullets here sliding up. I did not never transition like this when I went through it. But anyway, the committee meets at least 4 times per year per NRS. The committee members include parents, counselors, educators, a faith-based representatives, student representatives, if appropriate, professional development trainer, district education services, which would director of education services, myself, and a district student health nurse. Any substantial curriculum changes would undergo review by the committee and then need school board approval, which we're seeking tonight. They are standardized across the district and available for review on campus. And they've been posted on Board Book. And we've kept them up on Board Book with all of our FLSCA committee meetings as well. And then the most important thing we want to stress with families to know and to the school board is parent permission is required for participation. Students may opt out. Every student gets a parent permission slip prior to the instruction happening. If the teachers don't get that parent permission slip back, those students are in an alternative setting, doing an alternative assignment. They don't get the instruction. If we don't have parent permission to be a part of it, they don't get it. Any
And just
questions?
to clarify, that is synonymous with an opt-in.
Question just
Yeah,
was.
it's students have to opt in.
Yeah, I've been, sorry about that.
Is there any questions from the board? Rob, go ahead.
Okay, a couple questions. The other items that are attached to our board book here, like 3rd grade, the 3rd grade presentation,
Mhm.
is that the presentation that is used in class for us today
Those would be the presentations that teachers would use to
in
present the
class? So this
curriculum
is the actual material.
to the students. Yes.
So as I look through the 3rd grade and it's going over systems, it has lots of systems. It has the nervous system, the skeletal system, respiratory system, circulatory system, muscular, digestive, urinary. It doesn't have reproductive. Is
Not-
that
Not in third grade.
not in third grade.
It's just,
So in third grade, it is just health, identifying body parts. And okay, so that's question number one. Thank you. Question number two, how many parents or you had parents involved on this committee?
yeah,
Okay, and how are they selected?
we've just reached out to principals to recommend some.
You asked for
parents or-
principals to recommend.
Or recruiting. Yeah.
All right,
So-
and they're engaged in the committee,
Yes.
these parents?
It's been a struggle this year getting members to the committee. I have to reach out. Our actual faith-based representative didn't make it to any of the committees and finally said at the last one that he couldn't be a part of the committee. So we're going to be doing some more
Need some new.
recruiting of membership for this coming school year.
So if this is an opt-in, it's fair to say that no student is receiving sex education in our district that their parent hasn't approved
True.
for them to have. And how hard or easy is it for them to review the curriculum? What's the process for a parent to review curriculum?
The scope and sequence of the previous curriculum prior to this has been posted on the website, school district website under curriculum and instruction forever.
Okay,
So that's always been there for review. They can call my office and I have typically referred them to the school site who
Uh-huh.
has the actual binders and they can see all of the posters and everything they put up, everything they talk about, the teacher manuals, and they can review them with a counselor. Typically, it's been with a school counselor.
and so I suspect this new stuff will make its way. Application.
Once it's approved, we will get it up.
All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Heather?
I think there's also the night they can come to the school. Is that right? How often do you have something where they can come to the school to review the material? Is that
So that's prior to instruction every year.
okay?
Being new, I got onto it late and it happened in May, but it was actually really close. And I think we got it better turnout at all those parent preview nights than
Because it
ever
was
before.
Right before that. was
Yeah,
gonna be
talking to the
planned.
teachers, they said
Okay.
usually 3 to 5 people, even when it was hosted, they do it one elementary presentation across the district
Okay,
and then one intermediate. And we probably had 20 people attend both of those this year each, and they usually get 3 to 5. So maybe having the preview closer to instructional time is a better way to do it. I think it
right.
might get lost in
Shuffle of
the
everything.
stuff in February.
Right. And how is that, how are they told about it? Like, how would parents find out about those meetings? Okay.
Flyers go home with the 5th grade students they'll go home with the students of that grade level
Okay.
and they're posted.
Right, okay. So my other question is, as I've talked to parents, one of the concerns that came up was safety, that they felt like safety should be a part of this. And so I just wanted to know, how is safety addressed in this? Or if it's not addressed in this, is it addressed in other ways in their education?
So the safety,
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. So for example, others touching parts of your body or, abuse situations. How are we helping them just to know when to speak up or what is inappropriate? Just because it sounds like we're talking about,
and I know you're
those
thinking
things, so-
mostly probably more at the elementary level. And that starts as early as kindergarten, teaching them about personal safety and
Mhm.
personal, boundaries for their own person, in an age appropriate way.
right,
You know,
okay,
It's not appropriate for someone, and the counselors teach those lessons.
okay.
Um,
So those
it-
would be separate from this,
yes.
but would be taught.
Yeah, but
probably
they
more
are part of
frequently
those health
then.
standards
Okay.
and they are
then-
taught by the counselors.
Perfect, thank you.
Any, oh,
Can I
did
ask
you
one
have,
more?
of course.
I did have one more because I just wondered, and I'm sure you probably don't have like, an exact number or anything, but can you tell us about how many parents choose not to, that either don't turn in the permission slip or say, I don't want my child a part of this? Can you?
I mean, I can give you my experience as
than
an
half, more than
elementary
half?
school principal. It was 3 to 5 a year out of 2 to 3 classes of 5th graders.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Not very many. Never much more than a half a dozen.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions
Doug.
for Shannon? Oh, Doug, sorry. You're right next to me.
That's all right. I have a few questions. I was looking through all the material yesterday and you've got the 3rd, 4th and 5th grade on there. And I assume that's because the third and fourth is new. And you say the bands, there's a middle school band and a high school band.
Mhm.
And where is that material?
So we haven't updated those yet. We started with these that were added, is where the previous director chose to start. Our goal for next year is to start working on the sixth, seventh, and eighth. And even though it's a band of, it's a middle school standard is what it says, and it lists all the standards. Some of the middle school teacher worked in her PLC with some of the other teachers that teach it, and they wanted to really address it as, let's teach these standards in sixth grade, another set of standards. They didn't want it to be a one shot in sixth, seventh, eighth. So they had identified sixth grade standards that we want to update, seventh grade standards we want to update, and eighth grade, and that'll be our work next year, this
Okay.
coming school year.
And are these opt-in as well?
Yes.
Okay. And then I looked through it all and I thought they did a good job, including you. And I like the part about abstinence, how they push that first. And when I looked at the identify current preventative approaches, including but not limited to HPV vaccinations, when they talk about other but not limited to other approaches, is that where they bring up abstinence as well, or what other type of
I've looked at these so many times and I apologize.
fifth grade one content standards, core concepts?
It was,
It just says not limited to HPV vaccinations to combat communicable diseases. HRS 1.55.
yeah, I was just looking at where that might,
Well, I think it'd be safe to say that abstinence is throughout, like it's not, we don't just say it one time, like that's the theme throughout.
I know there's a
Yeah,
lot of places around the country where that's not necessarily
right.
the case, and I'm glad to see that that's pushed here, so.
It's on page like 18 and 19 of the fifth grade packet. So you have the third, fourth, and fifth grade packet. 18 and 19 are all about abstinence.
and in the,
Yeah,
the
no,
lessons
I saw
on-
those. It was in regard to that one thing, and it's just something that I was, I was hoping that would be, the best way to prevent this sort of thing, and that would be clear to the students. And then one other question I have, and I don't know, so if we need to wait for the next item for this, is about the name change of the board.
Let's wait till the
That'll be
next,
next
yeah.
item.
All right, that's all I have.
so on, Doug, back to your other question, in the lessons on communicable diseases, on slide 15, the last one, to prevent the spread of HIV is practice abstinence.
Okay.
Stay away from risky behaviors and situations.
Maybe I don't have that one. Okay, great.
Rob?
I got one more question. As I talked to parents about this, I had a few parents say both parents were happy with the abstinence approach. I had a few that said, I know the kids are having sex. I want to know how to do that safely. That's what the parent said to me. Is there maybe another opt-in that can be done for parents that want a little? I don't know do you understand what I'm saying here?
Covering that.
We understand what
I
you're
think the
saying.
parents should do that.
Yeah, that's,
I can't tell you specifically which grade level it's in, but I do know they start covering it later as they get older.
Okay.
certainly not at this level,
Not
obviously.
in
Right,
fifth grade,
yeah.
no.
And these were parents of high schoolers.
Yeah.
That I was talking to. So maybe I should leave that for later.
But why don't they talk to their kids? If they know that's happening, they should.
What they said is that they do, and they want reinforcement.
Okay,
So,
okay, that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least they do.
so that's, because I talked to them about, I asked that same question. So it's often, I mean, I know with my own kids, like I can say something 100 times, but if another adult that they respect says it once, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, you know?
That's the route they go to, is to find another adult that their kids trust that they're comfortable with them talking to them
Right.
about that. But
Okay.
yeah, okay, thanks. Any other questions? Okay. We'll go ahead then and let's see, where are we at? We're on number 10. So the recommendation is to approve the updated family sex life education instructional. I need someone to make a motion.
I'll make the motion. I make a motion the board approve the updated family life sex education aids instructional materials for grades 3 through 5.
Okay, motion was made by trustee Kangas. Is there a second? Seconded by trustee Chichester. Before we vote, do we have any public comment on this?
Chair.
Can you go ahead and please state your name for the record?
Virginia Stair. I was just wondering if it could be made clear, and I suppose I only picked up the packet that's available on the table over here. So I'm assuming then online that the entire presentation packets for each of those grades is actually included with that.
Is that true? That's what I
I
understand.
guess I can't get an answer for that. I'm not supposed
Yeah,
to do that. but-
Virginia, the presentation.
No, it's
yeah,
okay.
no.
It's over there too? I just didn't see it. Okay, okay. I was wondering, we're going to come to a different item on the human development program. That's a separate item, right?
Yes.
Okay, well then, I'm going to save my remarks to that. Thanks.
Okay, and you can come back up. Does anyone else have any comments before we vote?
Do you want those packets? You're welcome to
She's
mine.
got it. but they got it. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot
I have
back
a
there.
question.
Can you go ahead and state your name for the
I'm
record, please?
Terry Acola,
Terry?
AKOLA. Aren't there other communicable diseases besides HIV and AIDS now? And are they not teaching it anymore?
I don't know that. Did you hear the question? Oh, could you state your question
Aren't-
again?
Aren't there other communicable diseases that you can get through sexual activity besides AIDS and HIV? And are they not teaching the students about that in high school or in? I mean,
Yeah, they talked about STDs.
okay, so why are we talking about AIDS then in 5th grade if we're not talking about the other things as far as other communicable diseases? It's just not in here?
It says other related on here.
Okay. I don't mean colds. I mean sexually communicable diseases, diseases that you get through having sex. Well, why are we talking about AIDS then at 5th grade? This seems illogical to me.
It's a state
So
requirement.
they only
Is
care
this-
about AIDS?
I don't know. I can't answer that
Is-
with the state, but that's where they're at.
Is this her
Okay.
3 minutes to talk and we shouldn't be
Yes.
responding?
Oh, yeah, we're not supposed to respond.
that-
Sorry. Thank you. She had she said she had a question.
Right, I know.
Okay, I'm sorry. Break the rules. Okay, so let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 11. First reading of board policy number 211, Human Development Program. And Shannon, this is you again.
Yeah, and they were just talking about the new standards and they were more encompassing of than just family life and sex ed, and felt like human growth and development was a more appropriate term. And that was their recommendation, was to change the name of the committee to Human Growth and Development.
Okay,
And just to add, this is consistent with what many other districts, our name is pretty antiquated. If you look at this policy, when that committee was started. So reaching out to state superintendents, this is what most districts are using as a name for this. So little
Okay.
background.
all right. Is there any questions from the board?
I just have a comment. I think I like the old name because it tells what it is a little more clearly. It gets lost in the shuffle. People see human growth and like, oh, well, what does that mean? Whereas, life, sex, education, maybe not the AIDS part, but makes it, people can see what they're really talking about. I think the other way it obfuscates that. That's my comment on it.
I have a question. When we send home the information to opt in or to opt out, does it opt in? Thank you. To opt in, does it will it just say human development program, or will parents know that it's the sex ed program, so to
We
speak?
can design those letters
Yeah.
however we want.
Okay.
We haven't done anything in terms of
Okay.
changing how those read. We'll make them as clear as possible.
Okay, because I can understand what Doug's saying.
No,
too.
yeah,
I totally
I mean,
understand.
we
what-
want,
Yeah,
we want parents to know that this is the
exactly.
sex ed
Yeah,
part of
I've
the
We've been
training.
Trying to
so.
be as transparent as possible, sharing all these lessons, and we answered
Okay.
lots of questions. I think you were there that night. that,
Sure.
Several parents came
Mhm.
and
Yeah, it's a combination of health aspects of education too, so it's kind of
Right.
both. Use it all.
Yeah, it's too long. Okay. Anybody else have any comments on the board? Heather?
Okay, so I'm trying to put all of this together and it sounds like the idea of changing the advisory committee, that's just because it's encompassing all the way from kindergarten, if
right.
it has those health standards, all the way through
12th
12th
grade.
grade. And because the kindergarten health standards are about washing your hands and things like that, I'm assuming, it just looks, or it misrepresents when we say that it's the Family Life Sex Committee and they're having their meeting about kindergarten. Is that kind of what we're saying? So I guess what I'm saying is I'm okay with changing it to human growth and development as long as when they are talking about next year, when they're talking about the middle school standards, those meetings say it's the Human Growth and Development Advisory Committee is meeting to discuss the family life sex education for middle school. So we could change the name of the program just because it encompasses kindergarten through 12th grade. But if we can specifically address what it's going to be about,
Mhm.
does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I
that
think
would
it
just,
makes perfect sense.
And they really
Explain
only
more.
meet on that strand, like I said, there's 25 pages of new health standards. This committee talks about this specific curriculum,
Right.
not the entire health standards.
Okay, they don't talk about all of them, just the ones on this. Okay, but I think as
And
long
it's
as
our,
it's
yeah,
specific.
sorry to interrupt. It's our job to educate our parents. So when we make this change, it's our job to make sure that we communicate that this means this. And I like your idea. There's no, I just want to guarantee, there's no shell game here, right? It's just, it's not an adequate name anymore for all that it encompasses. But we need to communicate with parents. We need to make sure that they know exactly what that is. That starts with communication of even this decision, if you make it tonight. And then Heather, I think that's a great suggestion that, when we put stuff out that formally the family, and so we use that language until our parents are educated to know what that is. And the material, again, I mean, the material is going to be self-explanatory too, what's coming to them in the preview night. So I appreciate that suggestion.
Okay, so just to clarify, so what the committee is working on, what they worked on this last year was 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And next year, they're going to work on 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Mhm.
So I mean, I would say based on that, I would leave it the way it is, would be my comment.
Any other comments?
Yeah.
Ross?
I don't have a problem with the new name, but I do, when we get into where we're sending letters home for them to opt in, okay? I want those letters to explicitly state what will be taught in the form of sexual education or reproductive system or things like that to every parent in the 3rd grade. In the 4th grade, I'd like it to be, what is going to be there in the 4th grade. And in the 5th grade and with every grade. So there's a subset of this policy that goes in those letters, if you know what I'm saying, right? Does that sound reasonable?
Clarify a little bit. You want us to send this whole packet home, or do you want to make sure that they know where they can access the information?
I want to know where they can access it.
Okay.
And we need to advise them at that time that it will cover on the third grade.
Human
parts-
reproduction, right,
yeah,
okay.
Human reproduction.
Or
the
it doesn't in
parts-
third grade. Let's take that off the record.
Not human reproduction, but.
Right.
But the body. parts.
Yes, yes.
And the fifth grade will go into human reproduction.
Right.
And I think the most important part of all this, what you're saying, what Doug's saying, and everyone is that the communication piece of it, okay? We can call it the, human development program and then, but, is the whole program, but to make it very clear that parents understand that this is in replace of the, whatever it was called, the sex ed, and that also they need to know that they can go online, and they also need to know that they have the right to come to a meeting and see every video, everything that's going to be put forth in front of their children. So they can make a educated decision whether this is for their kid or, well, I want to do it myself. So, that's hopefully where we're going with this.
Right, but I just want the letters to
Sure.
go out to.
Absolutely.
Specifically state.
Absolutely. Yes, the
anything
communication piece is
reproduction
important.
I mean,
or
we could-
Body parts.
I mean, list the standards that were going to be covered in that grade level. They're pretty explicit as to what they cover.
Mhm.
That would be a
Okay.
simple thing to do.
So
Rob?
We're changing. the name of the committee. What is the name of? Is the curriculum, the name of the curriculum changed? Is it being changed to, because when you go under curriculum now, it says like family, whatever, right? Is that being changed as well?
I think we're
Yes, the
planning on it.
program. So we're changing the name of the program.
Yes.
So that's the umbrella of which everything falls under.
A quick search here on the internet, Carson, looks like theirs is the Family Life Committee. Washoe, it appears theirs is the Sexuality, Health, and Responsibility Education Advisory Committee. Comes up with a very clever acronym of SHARE.
Lion is
Health and
human
Lion.
development.
Human
Uh,
Development.
Humboldt is human development.
Necessary that these two things be lumped together? Can we not have the health curriculum and the sex ed curriculum? Can they not just be separate things to make it clear? And I think that would help in two ways, like sex ed does not reach third grade. It's just not there. What is there is health. And when we get to fifth grade, yeah, there is some sex ed and this is what it is. I think that might be a little clearer.
I mean, the third grade one is under this strand that is titled Family Life, Sex Education within the health standards.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I'm good with whatever the board wants to do. If you guys want to keep it as family life and sex education, we can do that. It's,
Or
This
we
was-
can come back.
I think we should table this.
We could table this and we can come back and divide it out. I guess you guys would need to kind of direct us to do that, right, Rick? So we know what our marching orders are, but we could definitely be more specific. It is an AR and, but we could be a little bit more, dice it out a little bit more for you. To make it clear that where the health, these are just health standards and then we move on to the sex ed.
Go ahead, Doug.
I mean, I think that's a good idea what Rob was saying. We label the third grade as what it is. It's basically health or home, whatever the human growth or whatever. And then when you get to fourth or fifth grade, you start calling it, family life, sex education, whether you need to put the AIDS in there. I mean, because then if you, like the lady was saying, if you put AIDS in there, then you put all the other things in there too. I mean, they should be in there, but maybe not in the title.
Okay. Carrie?
If I'm a parent and I'm opting in on something, I'm gonna look very closely. So, just floating this, it's not necessarily, maybe the administrative regulation can include, besides the name being Human Development Program, have something still left in there that has life, sex education.
Okay, anyone else?
I want
Heather?
to make another comment. So it sounds like, so I think what you just said, Shannon, is that the standards that we're talking about today in third, fourth, and fifth, they all come under the strand of family life, sex education in the standards.
within the health standards.
Within the health
So
standards.
the health standards has different core concept or strands, and one of those strands is family life, sex education,
And
and
that's the
AIDS.
only one, that's the only strand of standards that this committee deals with.
Yes.
So I'm kind of thinking we stick with family life, sex education, if that's the strand.
That-
But
You're saying that's what the state calls it.
that's what the state calls it.
Within the
Is that
standards, it
right?
does. So
But then I do agree
we're
with the
good either
third
way.
grade. I'm just thinking, we don't want a separate committee for third grade and then
No,
a separate committee for 4th through 12th.
No,
I mean, that would be,
Yeah, but if you have the third grade that says this, at least the parents are going to look at it, look through the standards. I'd rather err on the side of caution than not. So I'm still saying we keep the name as it was.
And honestly, we are totally open. We have no agenda in
this
this.
was
And
a
I think,
suggestion by the committee.
I think what Doug said is, I think the AIDS piece of this is the
Mhm.
antiquated part of it, that it sounds like you're okay with maybe taking that off, and we can be more specific in the AR, just with even a bullet item of what's happening in each grade level. And so maybe we just add that and add a little bit more specificity to this. So.
Does the state still have the term AIDS in it?
Yes. Yeah, HIV and AIDS.
It is a little antiquated, but I mean, if this is a direct result of the state standards, let's just call it what the state calls it. I don't understand. That seems reasonable to me.
Actually,
We're not going to make a change.
we've gotten a little far down here anyways. It's a admin regulation
Oh, it's in
anyway, so you're
there.
not going to take action anyways. I
Okay.
should have made that note. But
Okay.
you've given us great guidance, and that's why, I mean, this is important enough that we wanted to bring it. Typically ARs don't necessarily come before you, but you know, we know this could be a hot topic, and so we want to make sure that we get input. So we will go back, do some work. We will bring it back to you, even though again, it's not a approval to seek further input till we can get something that works for us. Okay,
do we have to do anything then? Make a
Nope.
motion? Nothing? Okay. Okay, thank you.
all right, thank you.
So we'll move on
Thanks,
to item number 12. Which
Still
is,
me.
thank you, Shannon. Oh, you again. You're in the hot seat tonight. Not on that. No, we didn't. No. we didn't. Not the right word. Okay, item number 12, administrative regulation number 521, dress code and grooming. And Shannon.
It's Shannon's night.
That's my
Woo-hoo.
night.
New guy gets
you're
all the work.
star.
So again, like you just mentioned with the last one, this is an AR. It's for discussion, information only. Get your feedback if you'd like to give us some in terms of before we finalize it. Superintendent Lewis had asked my predecessor, previous director, Rami Cronin Mack, to update this, take a look at our student dress and grooming policy or administrative regulation. She did a ton of work with this over the course of this last year. She, it hasn't been revised since 1999. You'll notice there was a section on pagers. And so she went out and gathered as much input as she could. She developed a survey that went out to parents, staff, and community members. We had over 1,600 responses on that survey, and you had that attached to your backup documentation too, so you could look at the kind of questions that were asked. She went and visited all government classes in the school district at every school and did a presentation on like how these ARs are developed and revised, and then got feedback from students, live feedback from them on these. Then she drafted some some revisions. It wasn't this final draft. And she took that to the leadership team and the Douglas Parent Advisory Committee or District Parent Advisory Committee. Got feedback from them. And the goal really was just to get some clarity and make sure that the previous one was, students even felt it was kind of biased against the female students. Just the way it was written, it was hard to enforce. It had like some of it was the length must be at least mid-thigh. Well, some of the young ladies are much taller than others, and it just, so it was problematic in trying to enforce some of it. So the goal was to get clarity and make sure that we were meeting the needs of what our families and community desired when it came around to dress code. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at this and look at the survey and see where the survey came out, and this aligns pretty clearly to what families
We never saw the survey, just so you know.
was attached to the board book, wasn't it?
No, we never
don't have-
received it. I know, we just never received it.
Make sure you do.
I received it and filled it out as a parent, but it's not in here.
If you weren't a parent, you didn't see it.
Yeah. so.
Current parent. I'm a
Oh,
parent.
Tony's got it.
Tony?
How is it handled when a student comes to school inappropriately dressed?
Usually it's referred to administration and it's a phone call home and they ask them to come and either bring them another set of clothes to rectify the situation, or to cover, if it's simply covering up, getting a jacket or, I don't deal with it much, honestly, at the elementary level,
But that's,
thankfully.
Tony, it's usually a phone call and asking the parent to, although I'd say most dress codes can be self-corrected. It's just they've zipped something down too far, or
Put their zip up hoodie
Yeah.
back on.
hats are
Rolling the.
hats are the biggest issue, and it was probably one of the topics of the greatest debate, whether or not we allowed hats or not. There's always concern about when a person's head is covered, being able to identify them if we ever needed to in some kind of discipline incident with our video. Being able to get a clear picture of their head is important. And so that's why hoodies and hats have traditionally. And so in talking to our leadership, who typically has to address those, it was about a 65-35 split. 65 of not allowing hats, continue to keep that in policy. And so it was not decisive to make that change. So we kept no hats in the building, which, as society, it used to be taboo to wear a hat inside. That's not as much as you go around areas now, but
That's the way I was raised.
Yeah, and
I was too.
and it was only like 54% in the survey. So when it was asked about some of the other, actually, I can get to it and give you the question. The following types of clothing should not be permitted in DCSD schools and classrooms, and asked them to check all that apply. When it came to violent language or images, there was 93% agreed. Images of language or language depicting drugs or alcohol, 95% agreed. Hate speech, profanity, pornography, 96% agreed. Language or images that create a hostile environment, 90% agreed. Visible underwear, 86% agreed those should not be permitted. Sunglasses inside the building, it was at like 54%. Actually, I think 54% was the hats. And then tube or strapless tops, it was still 70% agreed that those were all things that should not be permitted in our schools.
Yes, Doug?
I apologize, you didn't get a copy of
Yeah,
this.
yeah, I didn't see the survey, but I read through this and I think it's great, like it is, the way the changes are.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Rob?
I presume you mean just the hood?
Just the hood, they can wear hoodies. They just
Can we-
can't wear the hood. We need to clear, we need to
Their
clean
hood
that
on.
up. Yeah, that's been asked
Okay.
several times. So that's just, they can't wear the hood over their head.
Over their head.
inside. Yeah. Or
And then,
outside.
You talk about underwear, undergarments. Can't be exposed. When it's hot in our spring, and even fall sports are outside, a lot of the guys aren't wearing shirts, and a lot of the girls are only wearing sports bras. Is that? What's the story there?
That's a good question.
It's not inside in the Clyde. No,
I am not,
It's against dress
It's a
code.
great question. It's an interesting question. I don't know that I've seen a dress code
I don't think that ever came up, actually.
anywhere address that. That's,
That wasn't on the survey.
Mm-mm.
yeah.
Shirt,
It-
no shirts.
It does say is not a distraction to the learning environment, which makes me feel like it would be in classrooms or in the school. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
saying maybe you should address it.
Good point. All right.
Do we have a dress code for like physical education or sports or anything like that?
Yeah, so they are required to wear a uniform at the secondary level. Obviously, at elementary, there's no any kind of dress code. They're only there for 30 minutes, so we wouldn't want to spend the whole time changing them. But at middle school and high school, it is a requirement to wear an issued shorts and shirt. And then some schools even sell sweatshirts for when they're outside in the cool weather. So, and then there's usually consequences for not dressing out. As a former PE teacher, I believe strongly in those.
So what you're talking about though is more during practices,
Exactly.
like tennis practice
Cross
or
country, track.
cross-country,
football.
if there should be a dress code for that. I don't know if that's a learning environment, what it says on our dress code. Right.
Maybe it should be addressed, but I mean, I don't think it applies to what we're trying to do here whatsoever.
I mean,
I mean, boys.
They gotta wear hats.
They run down the street, boys down County Road. A lot of them don't have shirts on, but
Yeah.
well, and we allow them to wear hats outside too, for
Yeah,
obvious
yeah.
reasons of
So this
sun
really got-
protection and
This does not apply to that.
I'm good with that. But I'm just letting it make it clear that
I
it doesn't
understand.
apply to them.
Devil's advocate.
And can I ask one, when you did the survey, could you split out student responses on hats?
yes,
We could.
yeah.
I don't know that we did.
students were more in favor of hats. Yeah,
To
then
what
the
percentage would you say?
For the whole,
I don't,
have it broken out, but hats was 54% they thought they should be permitted.
Only 54 by students.
Out of all,
All.
that whole
Everybody.
1,600.
Students was a little bit
individuals.
higher.
Teachers too.
I
The
see.
majority was parents, like 80% of the respondents were parents.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
and as always, this is only as good as the enforcement. And, this is the conversation we'll have with our leadership team that, you can't have selective, the worst thing that happens is a kid gets to third or fourth period and no one's addressed it. And then that fourth period teacher is the bad person because they decide to, and so we'll be having those conversations with administration about,
starts in the first period.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's true. And that just takes. place.
On the out on the sports field stuff, maybe that could be just something you just discuss with. the
We would totally
coaches.
allow that because
Yeah, you just,
for sun
you discuss
protect.
that with the coaches, and if the coaches
Yep.
are like, look, you're gonna wear the jersey during practice or whatever, or
Yeah.
you're not, and then we don't have to.
Something like sports appropriate clothing as
Yeah.
approved by the
Yeah.
coach, something like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
You want me to send this survey out to all the board? So you can
Yeah,
see
we'll get it. We'll get the survey results out to
That'd be
you.
great.
You can see
Thanks.
them.
Apologize
I'd
for
like
that.
to look at it.
No, this is another just
No.
for information. To get
Information
input.
only. All right. There you go. Okay, now we're on item 13 on the agenda. Thank you, Shannon,
Thank you.
for your time and all your work. The development of public input, a process. So this is for,
No, it's an AR again. So it's just an information for information.
so this is for discussion and possible action. And this was something that was brought up right at the last meeting, I believe.
Yes.
Rob brought it up and Ross seconded it. It was discussion of the creation of a hotline and or website link as a communication tool used for the community. Rob, since you brought it up, would you like to go ahead and lead this discussion?
Sure. The goal here is to have an easy process for parents, students, the community, whether or not they're parents or students, to report and seek clarification on whatever. So several months ago, it was reported that a few students were, boy, that's a bad example because that includes privacy.
Can you give us, we know we have the call-in number for. to
Safe
report.
Voice.
Safe Voice.
Safe Voice.
So how is this going, to? What are you
This
looking
is
at? that's
more
different?
about like, this is more content. This isn't a safety issue. Safe Voice is mostly a safety issue, and it can, and we have used it. We've promoted it a little bit as a content item, but I think because Safe Voice is administered, is it by the state or is it just some other entity?
By the state.
The state.
Yep.
The state does it. When someone uses Safe Voice, it goes to a professional who kind of triages that situation. Lets the superintendent and police know, is this a school shooting? Is this suicide? Is this whatever, right? And they address it. This, I think, is more of a way to address concerns on content. Appropriate things that are being taught, or at least what people think might be inappropriate. This, of course, is a result of our ongoing discussion about political items. In our meeting, when we decided that we're okay with where we stand, we said that we are going to make sure that these CRT and other items that shouldn't be taught aren't taught. So this is a way to actually do that, to report it. So someone in the community heard that third period, Mrs. Doe's class, there was she separated the kids into oppressors and oppressed, and right, that gets taught. So someone's able to make a phone call or go online and say, hey, this is what I heard. And so the district, number one, is made aware of this. That's number one. Number two, they're able to do an investigation and then report back what happened. Like, no, actually, that's not what happened. Here's what happened. We interviewed a bunch of students, or hey, yeah, that did happen. And boy, that was the wrong thing to do. And here's the steps that we've taken to stop it. So this is that type of thing.
And,
But, oh,
and
go ahead.
is it anonymous or not anonymous or?
So Keith and I have discussed this a little bit. I think at least when somebody wants clarification, so a lot of this also would be used to address just inaccuracies and misrepresentations, right? Hey, I heard this is happening, and the school district can get back to them and say, actually it's not, and here's what's happening. I think that there should be the ability to be anonymous. I think that's probably a good thing, because people are afraid of,
How do you get back to them?
you don't, on an anonymous one, you don't. Or, as I've thought this through, it's possible that the superintendent on anonymous ones could just, write up a report and put it online. This anonymous report happened. Here's our response. And then whoever did it can go on and look there, or it could be added to our consent agenda. There's a number of ways that a result could be posted publicly. But
I think this would be like, maybe we have a website or an email that you could contact, or would it be more of a hotline type thing?
the implementation is,
I mean, yeah, what would be feasible for the
I
district?
mean, a phone number, just a voicemail would be easy enough, and an email address would be anonymous. You could have a form online that you fill out. So, but Keith's got thoughts, I know.
Yeah, so Rob hit on it. One of my concerns has just been things that have been thrown out in the community that people hear and don't know, is it true or not? They're not necessarily affiliated with school district, and they hear something, and being able to have a number that they could call or an email that they could send and get clarification. Is this true? Please explain more. I would caution you on an anonymous that we wouldn't necessarily post anonymous reports, but that's one of the downfalls of Safe Voice is people use Safe Voice to report some of what Rob is deciding, but it's against the law for us to make any effort to identify or to even verify that the report came through Safe Voice as part of that law. It is very bound by confidentiality. And so even if we know who it is, we can't go to that person and say, you submitted this Safe Voice, can we get more information? So there's some limits to that. And I think in terms of the getting back to people, I would envision this. I agree with Rob that I don't think we would prevent them from giving an anonymous report. I just think we'd have to be very careful of allowing anonymous reports and then we're validating it, not really being able to necessarily get all the facts of that. But I also envision like an FAQ section of our website. So as somebody asks a question and we answer it, that could be their first go-to, is they could go to the FAQ page and say, has anyone asked this, and could see the district's stance or response to that issue. John, you can, if you want to come up here and add into this as the IT guy. He's promised me it's very simple. So how simple is it, John?
John Enter for the record. Basically, the easiest way is a hotline telephone number. They can call in, they get a recorded message says, please, let us know what the issue is. And then if you want, you can leave your name and number. It's a voicemail. It's very simple. There's no cost to it. It can be a very specific telephone number that's not associated with anything else. You could do a form on a website. I actually like the telephone hotline the most. It's the simplest way to do it. And then also, like he said, a fact page on our website. But the one you were trying to think of an example, and the one example that comes to my mind is when we were just talking about sex ed here. All of a sudden it was put out on social media that we were teaching sex ed to kindergartners. And it just spread like wildfire. And that, I'm sure we had parents that were, is that true? They could call that, leave a message, and then we can get back to them and say, no, that is not true. So hotline's the easiest way. We can do a form on the website. That's also very easy. I just think the hotline is probably more manageable. So.
And, I think everyone knows how to use the phone. Not everyone is tech savvy. Or has the availability. And so I think definitely the hotline is number one, but I think it probably would behoove us to have some tech aspect to this too, and we can work on that. I think the other thing that's nice about this is it gives us an opportunity to know, if we're getting, in John's example, if we're getting 10 phone calls on this issue, it gives me some information that maybe I need to put something out to parents. Maybe this is a more widespread issue than just a couple people. So it kind of gives me a barometer of, community concern and parental concern, which is always important to be able to effectively communicate.
My concern would be if you have a hotline and you have something like John's talking about here with this, thinking they're teaching sex ed to kindergartners, you get 100 parents coming, that overwhelms the person that's trying to keep up with the messages, maybe.
It could.
Whereas if they have to go to a site and they can see that the questions already
Right.
been answered,
Right.
then maybe they don't vent at that point.
Yeah. You're saying that they could come to the meeting and be upset or,
Well,
Overwhelm the voicemail and it'd be voicemail boxes full.
but I think that would allow me, I wouldn't necessarily expect us to respond to all 100 of them, but we could put out a press release, or we could do something that gets the message out to the community.
and then part of that message that they would hear when they call, you can say, have you checked out our frequently asked questions page on, at this location? And if you don't see it there, leave a message and let us know what you think. So, yeah.
Is there a reason not to have both the voicemail and the form?
No, there's no reason. I mean, yeah.
Any other comments about this item? So this is just, are we,
Nope, you can take board action and direct us to create.
so we have to make a motion?
Make a motion that the board request of staff to develop a process by which the ask questions and or seek from district staff regarding instruction, curriculum, and or school events.
All right, a motion was made by trustee Lehman. Is there a second? Seconded by trustee Chichester.
Can I get clarification?
Sure.
Rob, what were your three To request what?
It's right out of
It's
the.
right out of the
agenda.
Oh, it
thing.
is.
It's
Okay,
right on the
never mind.
agenda.
I thought
Okay.
you were just. coming
All
up with that on
right,
the
so
fly.
before we vote, we have public comment. I know. Public comment on this? Please state your name for the record. I know, but it's being recorded. Thank you.
I kind of suggested providing, and concern, because did you, you probably heard me anyway, right? I'm
good.
loud. Because we're in an election right now, and there are school board members sitting here who are incumbents, who are mounting a campaign that is going to involve countering certain claims made by their opponents about the school board and about the school district and about content and about conduct. And I would hate to think the board is putting itself in a place to take a political side and appear to be involved in the political side of these races that are happening in this election season. It seems to me this is opening you up to being advocates for your board members when they want to answer a claim made that in some way criticizes something about the school or about the board. And I don't think that would be a good place for the board to be. Also, I liked that Mr. Lewis clarified it was the district's response, because I want to also make clear that I do not always believe that the district response is actually the truth. So we're not really talking here about providing parents with the truth necessarily. We are talking about providing them with the district's response. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes 6-1. Thank you. Next, 5:30, public comment. Is there any, at this time, you're going to time? Who does the time? Oh, you got it, Ross? Okay. This time, comments from the public are invited at this time on topics not specifically addressed elsewhere in the agenda. There is a sign-up sheet. Is it right there? Okay. Everybody signed up that wants public comment? Thank you, Shannon.
Okay, after you
Perfect.
state your name, you will have 3 minutes. At 2.5 minutes, I'll raise a yellow card. Until you have 30 seconds left. When I raise the red card, please conclude your remarks.
Okay, Susan Jansen. So
Thank you.
I have two subjects to discuss with the board today in my public comment. Number one, I have been asking for a copy of the Epic Learning Curriculum since February. I have personally asked 4 board members for a copy to review. So far, crickets. Again, no transparency. What are you people hiding? I thought you loved this. Why don't you want me to see it? Okay, number 2, I've heard from members of this community that the Douglas County school community is spreading rumors about Dave Burns, Catherine Dickerson, and I, that we hate teachers. Since Leslie Burns and I were career teachers, both 30+ years, and Catherine's husband is currently a substitute teacher. And I want to state this for the record. That is ridiculous and of course, a false rumor.
Thank you. Next, we have David Burns. You could also state your name for the record, sir.
My name is David Burns, for the record. I've listened to board meetings since the first of the year, and Mr. Lewis has repeated a couple of times how wonderful the school district is. We're the best in the state. Other comments. And I want to clarify something. If you're the best school district in the state and it's ranked 50th, I don't think I'd brag on that. But here's the first administration regulation. The Board of Trustees, number 513, Douglas County School Districts, students is grading grades 6 through 12. Douglas County School District reports student achievement in the terms of course point grade. Yeah, I'm not going to go through those, but now we're in a category of below 60. is failing. Well, I'm sure this is across the nation, but a lot of things used to be 70. So you allow them to pass at 60, anything above 60, I don't think really gives an advantage or helps the kids to be challenged to do better in their school. Number two, the overview of Douglas County School District. We want to take a national look at this, and it's by US News, considered education. They rank all schools by their grades, by their grading testing scores. Now, to be fair, I wanted to be based on 2019 before COVID, and it looks like they're below what these standards are because of COVID. But giving that, test scores at Douglas County School District and Douglas County, now remember 60%. Douglas County School District, 58% of elementary students tested at or above the proficient level for the reading. 55% tested at or above the level for math. 44% of the middle school students tested at or above proficient level for reading. 32% tested at or above the level for math. 59% of the high school students tested at or above the proficient level for reading, and 41% tested at or above that level for math. Here's the kicker. High school college readiness is 39.1%. In January 2022, Western Nevada College commentary says, according to the National Home Education Research Institute, 3.7 million kindergarten through 12 students were homeschooled, growing from 2.65 million. Homeschoolers student scores 15 to 30 percentiles points higher on standardized academic achievements. So in turn, they are seeking out homeschoolers, not schools from the public school here. I want you to understand something. If you think that's something to be proud of and brag about, you're mistaken. We're setting in a national comparison. We need to not do it in the national.
Comments. Next, we have Virginia Sterrett. Please state your name for the record. It's like a- Yeah,
Virginia Sterrett.
thank you.
I most recently taught English at Western Nevada College. But before that, I taught full-time at Cal State University, Fullerton. I also participated in special programs teaching outreach classes at UC Irvine for underrepresented minorities. At CSUF, I even taught students how to be teachers. I loved teaching and I respect teachers. Despite one board member's mockery, I am not fringe. I am also not woke. I am a conservative, a patriot, and a Christian. My claim that you, the sitting board of this district, are not protecting the students and not representing the community comes from hundreds of hours of research and observation, and from my experience with this board over the last year. This board has done nothing to resist the woke ideology infiltrating education in the state of Nevada. Democrat-controlled legislatures have created mandates that facilitate far left and now woke politicization of K-12 schools. Woke mandates, such as classes must be taught from a cultural perspective that pits the so-called marginalized groups against the dominant group, and discipline must be meted out in accordance with the far left's idea of social justice have, in fact, been embraced by this school board. I watched it happen. The Douglas County community has been fooled into thinking this board is protecting their children, when in fact it has been complicit in undermining the nuclear family, reinforcing identity politics, and allowing age-inappropriate sex-themed materials to be made available to young students. Even when the education experts decide a graphic depiction of a man performing oral sex on another man is appropriate for 10-year-olds, you, our board, should say no, but you don't. And when a grade school student survey asks, what gender do you identify yourself to be? It shouldn't take parents objecting before the question is not included on the survey, but it did. Transgender, BLM, and gay pride flags should not decorate a principal's office or classrooms, but they do. And non-binary dress should not be listed as an option for school photos, and yet it is. The superintendent unprofessionally yells at the board, and the board not only caves, but rewards him with an extended contract. This community isn't woke. It is by and large made up of hardworking, patriotic, fair-minded folks, and it desperately needs to wake up to how its schools are being programmed to turn out budding Marxists. This has nothing to do with the teachers who are dedicated, caring, good human beings. It's about the board failing to do its job. Thank you.
You. All right, I think that concludes our meeting.
Let's make sure.
Is there anybody else on? Thank you.
Let me look.
Anybody on Zoom for comments? All right, meeting adjourned.
No, wait, wait, wait.
Oh, no, 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 sorry.
Jeez.
These are- well,
I know, sorry, but we're not in closed session, right?
Nope, we don't need closed
Okay,
session.
all right.
Tony wants to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tony, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
That this is in the back of everybody's mind, or maybe in the front of everybody's mind. School security. Across the nation, there's been such a problem in schools with shootings and security and all these things. And I would like to address that situation and get more information on that for the next board meeting. To see how we're handling security, what happens if someone comes into school with a knife or a gun, what's the procedures, so on and so forth. So I would like to get that on the next agenda and see how that's addressed.
Okay, Tony wants to have,
So just, Tony, just for clarification, so just what safety measures are we taking? Obviously, we'd want to be a little bit vague and specific responses, how we're going to respond. But we can let you know, like, what are we doing? Window tinning, fencing, one single point entry. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
okay,
Second that.
okay,
We need a
so,
second.
yes, we do need a second. So Tony mentioned this and Ross seconded it. Okay, anything else anyone wants to put on future agenda items? How are we done? Okay. Is that it? This is for when?
Is there any other? 17.
Oh, I thought that was this one. I'm
No.
sorry.
You're at 15, now you're at 16.
Okay, got it. All right. Just 15, okay, 16, okay. So we can go ahead right to public comment then again. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I thought this was unusual, this meeting, because the meetings I've been to in the past, there actually was a public comment at the beginning of the meeting, but you skipped that. There was none on. the
No, it's
agenda.
always been at
Public comment.
5:30 is the first one.
Oh, really? Because I
Yes.
thought at other
It
meetings-
just seemed like, because we were here forever before, but there was one at 5:30 and then this one. And
Okay.
sorry, I.
Okay, I'm Virginia Starrett again. During the last meeting, trustee Rob Lehman once again came within inches of a member of the community and behaved in a hostile manner. He did this because the man he was attempting to intimidate had offered a public comment that was critical of an action of the board. Moreover, Lehman's response from his seat to Mr. Henderson directly after public comment was also out of order and serves as prime evidence of this board's general negative attitude towards members of the community weighing in on school board matters. More concerning, though, is that what he said was not true. According to your minutes, Mr. Lehman stated as part of his response that what Mr. Chichester was going to do was merely combine a number of the superintendent's existing contracts. But the language in your minutes also makes clear that Mr. Lewis's salary and other contractual provisions were to be considered in the process. That is not merely a combining. It is a renegotiation. I would expect a board to have a far better code of conduct for board members and to seek transparency rather than allow misleading information to be disseminated by a trustee. I would also caution this board that due to the existence of the upcoming election in November, for which 2 board members are incumbent candidates and a past school employee is also a candidate, that the schools themselves are forbidden from promoting any candidate on their campuses, which includes having political tracts or advertising on school grounds. The board itself is forbidden by law from assisting any candidate in his or her campaign. It has come to my attention that Rob Lehman personally contacted former co-workers at the California school where his opponent last worked and asserted harsh condemnations of his opponent in the hope of soliciting damning information he could use against his opponent. I believe an investigation should be made into this unethical action by Mr. Lehman, and it should be determined if he used his position as a school board member in any way to facilitate getting names and addresses of his opponent's co-workers. If he did so, he should be removed from the board. Please note that a copy of Trustee Lehman's message is available upon request. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can adjourn it now.